Good evening. I'm Rebecca Highbottom, and this is the Red Lipstick Republic fake news broadcast, where we do our very best to bring you all the fake news, rumors, and conspiracies that we can scavenge. Thank you for coming and joining us again. Today, we are going to talk about things that are in the mainstream media. Not really. Like everything else that we bring to you, we have to search all the nooks and crannies where the media hides the news. News doesn't have to be true. This was a case that was won many years ago. However, it does have to be new to be news. So, when the media tells you something, it's just new. It doesn't mean it's true. That kind of rhymes. But we're not poets and we're not rhymers, but we are conspiracy theorist providers. So, without further ado, there is an article that was found by our staff, and guess what? It's a doozy, because they're after our books. Now, not everybody has to choose books like After the Crisis by Jack Satali. Good luck getting this one. It takes a while. Now we're starting to understand. Or another recommendation, The Club of Rome. Really good book. Look, it's so thick. They have so much to say. They're quite succinct. You know what? They tell you everything you need to know in this little pamphlet. And these pamphlets are not cheap and not easy to find. Last one that I thought I would share with you that I did get was The Attention Merchants. This is really what they want. They don't want you to be able to go into a book that's timeless, something that can't be changed once bought, because you may find wisdom in books. But I digress as usual on every show. I'm going to try to keep this brief, because what I do find with all of my millions of subscribers, all of I think 3, I think the length of my videos are probably not desirable. So we're going to get straight into what's going on with our books and who is conspiring against us, so that we are not able to have the freedom and the rights to be able to go out and to find knowledge if news is not providing the truth or enough information. All right, now from there, we're going to get into our very first article. There was a leaked article that actually, wow, I'm really surprised. Listen to this. Bombshell documents expose White House censorship campaign to ban books on Amazon. That's real bombshell, because I've heard about it everywhere. Actually, no, scrap that. I haven't. This is just regular news, because the White House is constantly trampling on people's rights, and by which the White House spreads their trample everywhere along the Western world. What I mean by is, the West is like a bunch of sheep that follow whatever America does. America decides that they're going to put seatbelts in cars, so does the rest of the world. These are small little things that have incrementally crept up on us. But if you really look back at the main propeller of all of these changes, we have to look to Hollywood, to the White House, to inevitably the UK, but I digress. This bombshell news that nobody's talking about is the White House has once again been exposed for violating the First Amendment rights of Americans. Oh my God! I'm sure everybody is in utter disarray and dishevelment, but that is not true, because now this is the new normal. News comes out, people have been affected, but everybody stays quiet and polite. So then there's people like me that must speak up and tell you guys that this is something that is a problem. Many years ago, I had a discussion with someone, and my point to this friend of mine was that if books disappear from universities and schools, the data in those books can be changed overnight. From one day to the next, they can be changed. Meaning, if they decide to change something in the curriculum, something that may or may not be true, the update happens overnight, and you don't have to go through the rigmarole of reprinting books, redistributing books, getting everybody to get acquainted with what the context in the books are. No, they erase and repopulate new information, and new ideas are born and accepted overnight without even the ability of people to say, hey, wait a minute, yesterday it was good to eat Doritos and today it's good to eat worms. And that is a fact because the fact checker said so, because the internet said so, because the experts said so. Do I go on? So books are imperative. And during every struggle in human history, before or notwithstanding before, pardon me, when people didn't know how to read and write, the power of people being able to preserve their own history and their thoughts and pass them along intergenerationally without actually seeing that generation is a powerful and very resourceful thing for us sheeple to hang on to. Now, I want you to be very aware of the fact that we are large in numbers, but we do not hold the power of information and of knowledge if we do not have them in print, if we do not basically mummify them in print. This is severely important. Why in history have we had burning book sessions where people were vilified for holding books? In Cuba, this happened. In every country where information was squeezed and controlled, books became the enemy, much like what we are now. We're moving on. I digressed really, really far. The Biden administration isn't guilty for social media censorship in this case, but banning books, is it censorship or is it not censorship? Because the context of the books is being censored. If books are being censored in general, the content in those books are then being taken off the shelves for an option for the people. So I would argue that that is very much censorship. Internal documents supported by the GOP indicated that Amazon bowed down to Biden's White House pressure to censor books. That the books that expressed views that the White House did not approve of. So, if a government, any government, whether pretending to be a democracy or not, is actively going into a private company and ordering them to censor certain materials in books, in print, that is by way censorship, because they do not want specific information to be given to the public. If you are restricting any kind of information, that is censorship. You may not agree with lizards, with aliens, but those things should not be censored just because you do not agree with them. The people's ability to use and discern their own logic should give you the security that people will ultimately come up to the conclusion that is most rational. Now that is, of course, if you have a society that you have bred in your country that is a logical, law-abiding, moral society. However, when you are unraveling a society such as what we are starting to see, books can become a very dangerous instrument for people to be suddenly awakened during the process of debauchery. When people become uncomfortable, when people start asking questions, they will turn to books. Now, I have a very, very interesting fact. I wanted to see if there was an increase of buying books. Now, according to some studies, it shows that the United States, in way of books, have grown about 8%. So 8% of the US population has increased the purchase of books. Now, you have to also remember that this is also coinciding with a time where the printed book has been on a decline, and a decline for years and years. I mean, there are so many newspaper businesses or companies, pardon me, that have gone down because people are no longer turning to print. However, when people start turning to print over digital, there is something shifting. And this is something that was interesting because while I was researching to see if there was a correlation between, are there more people purchasing physical books, which there are, but something funny happened when I started researching. the WEF has also been researching. Shock! I mean, shock. I mean, I'm so shocked because I think that the governments themselves would have been smart enough to figure out that, oh, we've got to ban books because this disinformation is, people getting real information is just absolutely not right. There's also another video that we're going to discuss about the WEF. And the WEF here is starting to take interest in what people are reading. These people must take an interest on everything that we're doing so that they have a temperature read of where we are with their agenda, because they are putting the agenda on us and we are the receiving recipients that must actually digest it and ingest it first. So first we have to ingest all of these ideas that they're putting forward, because the WEF is actually because everything that the government puts forward, we have to go back and see what the WEF thinks about it. Because if they think it's a good idea, well, it's a good idea to assume or maybe suspect, maybe we'll use the word suspect, that they had a gentle nudging, pushing in that direction. What I found was that the WEF does acknowledge that there is more book reading. However, they use their platform in order to dissuade us from reading things like the merchants' attention, the attention merchants. They don't want people to read books like this. They certainly don't want people to be reading the Club of Rome. These books should be $5. They're not. They're closer to $30. Jack Zitali. This man, brilliant, brilliant writer, very, very sought after, very difficult to find his books. The WEF's website goes on to talk about what the best books are. Of course, among them Barack Obama, their shining, shining star, and other things like Codename Bananas. So this book is about girl, woman, other. So again, it plays on what they're doing is they're starting to push interracial, being a black woman in the UK, because I mean, obviously, clearly that's the best-selling thing. So what they do is, in the WEF website, what they try to showcase is that more people are reading. They're not concerned about it at all. But the quality of recommendations that they give is clearly to steer us in the more approved reading list. So that I thought was very interesting, because they are paying attention to what book sales are being sold, and through their channels, they're trying to recommend books that you and I should be reading, like about Barack Obama, who absolutely knows exactly how the rest of us live. That he has absolutely the wherewithal to understand what it means to be a commoner in this day and age. Although it is the best time in the world to be a commoner, it is still definitely not at all related to how they live. Back to this email, just Amazon. So then what they went on to, so the way that they did it, at first Amazon made it look like they were not interested in helping the government in this case. An email on March 2nd, 2021, an email demanding to know if the White House colleagues could talk with the company about the high level of propaganda, misinformation, and disinformation on Amazon. Now, WEF, ironically, again, there is a correlation with their propaganda, misinformation, and disinformation. Now, these are words that were constantly being used at the WEF meeting this year in 2024. And the reason why is they are saying that they need to get the public's trust. Now, what that means is clearly manipulating the government to make it look like they're getting our trust, but really taking away all of our choices in order to find other information to see if we in fact can trust these elites that are in high power decision-making positions. Amazon decided to hold off on doing any manual interventions to censor any books. Why, you ask? Not out of the commitment of free speech. No, that would be against their policy if you read their 62-page .8 font. But because doing so would be too visible for us, the sheeple, the American public, to notice and to likely spur criticism from the conservative media. So they obviously have enough business from the conservative side, because right now there's a change in tide. We're going from the left wing of the bird to the right wing of the bird. Now, I'm going to say that I'm not left wing, right wing media, because to like the right wing of a bird and not to like the left wing of the bird, to me seems, well, idiotic. Apologies for anyone who is easily offended. But it is true. How can you like a parrot and not like his right wing, but like his left wing? Because say the right wing is the one that slaps you and the left wing is sits still. Are you going to like one wing over the other when you like the bird? Politics is one bird. You can't pick one side and think that you're going to win, because you're going to swim in, you're going to fly in circles. It's okay. If I can compare it to being in a canoe, just for the full disclosure, I hate canoeing, but let's just go with canoe. You have a canoe. If you're paddling just on one side, what are you going to do? You're going to go in circles. But if you paddle 2 times on the left and 2 times on the right and 2 times on the left and 2 times on the right, you're going to go fairly straight, although you're still going to make small, tiny little gestures this way and that as your nose is lining up. Same with politics. If you're a right-winger, you're still part of the bird. If you're a left-winger, you're still part of the bird. You guys are still married. You guys need to find individual opinions, not something that belongs to a bird. Digressed again. All right. So the media is a big problem for them. They don't want to lose the cash. So we are still in a place where we're making a little bit of cash mean something. Why was the Biden White House so upset with Amazon? Well, because, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you why. Amazon believed that retailers are different than social media communities, and they provided their customers with access to a variety of viewpoints. For the Biden administration, letting Americans think for themselves, my apologies, I get a little too ahead of myself, was unacceptable. Now, if anyone doesn't have a problem with that, for the heart of thinking, if you don't have a problem with your president, someone that barely can make it to the bathroom, I would presume, on time, and can barely read a dummy board because he still comes off of the dummy board, for him to say that you, Americans, and then by which us, the rest of the Western world, will follow, because we are like your puppy dogs, we follow everything America does for the most part, for any important part, letting Americans think for themselves is unacceptable. People, I just want you to realize your president wants you to be dumb. There's nothing more to say, right? Then it goes on to one of the key questions in some of these meetings that they were having back and forth, or emails, sorry, back and forth. One of the key questions in these emails back and forth was whether or not the Biden White House wanted the books banned or just buried in a search result. So now we're talking semantics. We're getting into the gritty details. They do not even know if they want, do you want ham and cheese on your sandwich, or would you just like ham? We're not talking about a situation where Amazon's saying, look why are you playing with my model of business? This has nothing to do with you. People aren't doing anything illegal by buying books. Books were printed, someone paid for them, someone is making money. There is no reason why anyone should have a problem with buying books. I digress. So some of the things that were discussed, the reason why this came out is they were wondering, hey, do you need them buried? Do you need them just completely gone off? I mean, these are the discussions people are having in supposedly a free market. This free market is starting to look a little bit like capitalized communist China, where you'll have the only options that the authorized versions allow. If you are allowed to wear red and you are allowed to wear white, if yellow comes into the mix, you won't even see it because it won't be allowed and you won't even know it. So we're being treated like children. You don't see it, you don't want it, right? And we don't seem to have a problem. The same day as the meetings in the White House, Amazon, so the same day that they were having some of these discussions back and forth, same day as this meeting that they were having back and forth, Amazon enabled, same very day, they were supposedly not wanting to help them, enabled do not promote for books that express the views for the shots were effective. So they, despite giving the illusion that they were against this, same day, no questions asked, put a little bit of a choker on any person who dared to speak out in a book. Now, if you've ever written a book, which I haven't, but I've started to write some things down, it is extremely hard. I have people that I know that have written books, and it is a work of consumption of time and energy. It takes a lot of energy to write a book. Now, for those people, I don't think you would think it's very fair if you made jewelry and all of a sudden, because your jewelry was not approved by the mainstream government, you were then completely taken out of the ring of creating your own income. I don't know about you, but that is where we are encroaching on things that are happening, laws that are being passed, and this is the problem. The problem is there's not even a law here. There hasn't even been a law. This has just been arbitrarily decided before bringing it to the people. And you tout that you're in a free democracy? Please provide comments where you have this democracy, under what circumstances you think you are under a democracy rule. Because you are not under a democracy rule. You are under rule, but not democracy. We go on. Amazon also considered other ways to reduce the visibility of certain books that the Biden House disliked. So we are now at a time where we are ruled in a democracy, let's go with that, where one man that arguably wears briefs, those dependable kind, is deciding whether or not you should see information that may or may not help you in your life if you choose to get up and read that. How do you feel about them apples? I think they're pretty damn rotten if you ask me. I am of the belief, and I have been of the belief for many, many years, that books are the only way to gain knowledge, the only way to look at, depending on how quickly you can read, that many different perspectives. The more perspectives that our brain is exposed to, the better decision making on a day-to-day happens for that individual. Education is not synonymous with wisdom. Wisdom is the amount of information that you take in, are able to process, and are able to logically then be able to utilize in your life to make your life better. Whether it's self-help books, which have been off the hook lately, mental health books, those are allowed to be out. But God forbid if you are talking about things like natural health, healing yourself, excluding the pharma industry, good luck. Those things are being slowly taken off shelves, slowly reduced in visibility, working behind the scenes for you not to be able to get at those things, but making it look all the while that it's a natural trend where most people are not interested in. That is not true. 1984, we did a video on that. You can go back and look at it. 1984 is one of the highest picked up books that have been being sold, because people are starting to see that We have been warned. Now they're going back and asking, and many of the books that I have, and I've showed you some of the books that I've had recently that I've purchased, but many of the books that I've wanted to purchase are almost impossible to buy. I found a book that was $2,600, and I ask you, why would any book in the world be $2,600 unless, of course, we no longer had the ability to reprint that book? That would make sense. Or if it was the original Bible written by Christ himself, or perhaps by Muhammad, the Quran. I can understand why books like that are invaluable, but $2,600 for a book, and if I remember the name of that book, I will include it in the link below. I don't know if I'll find it because I actually printed it off because I was in shock that what they would do is they would financially squeeze people out that want to better themselves. But bettering ourselves, individual people, hurts them. They want us to trust them. Now, at the WEF, they are so scared of us educating ourselves in a way that it initially meant, meaning creating knowledge within ourselves, individually strengthen our ability to think logically and critically. They are nervous. In the WEF 2024, one of the highest highlights that they were concerned with that was on the table topics was regaining our trust. But not regaining our trust, it would appear, naturally, holistically, truly, morally. No. What they want to do is they are finding all the ways that their powers can mitigate our trust in the direction they need, but not actually getting our trust because they don't want our trust. We are the enemy. And we know this because instead of honestly telling us what's going on, they don't. They want to now recapture the discussion. They want to recapture the lens where it is solely shining the way through one lens where no one else can show you another option, another view. But we all know, anyone that has ever been in a discussion with another person, when there's you and another person having a disagreement, an argument, whatever it may be, whether you are in an argument with this person or whether you are agreeing to terms, the only two people that know what happened in that room is you and the other person. And the funny thing is that right there already there's two sides to the story. The person one is going to have one version, person two will have another version. Now, the truth is if both are telling the truth, the versions should be indistinguishable from one another. The difference between this is everybody remembers differently and everybody has their agenda. Just like the WEF, they want us to believe we are being told the truth, but they're doing it in a way that is eliminating our ability to discern whether it's the truth, but they will hand us the fact-checked, already ready packaged, nicely organized truth that's scientifically based and followed by all experts, certified and organized, and we are just to swallow it like today's pablum for children. I ask you to please consider that if you do not have the right to look at all the information, despite whether or not you agree with it personally or not, we are all in very deep trouble because people that don't have knowledge can be led down any path. People who do not practice logic and reason and use moral judgment in order to do so, we are going to be a society that will pay very dearly for those things to disappear from our society. A society is based on those pillars. And with that, I hope you go and purchase a book. And if you can, be extra and go to a used bookstore and rummage through the old dusty books and have that experience. Go vintage shopping for books and support the little guy. Support the guy that actually helps a society be self-reliant. not the Walmarts, not the Amazons. Exclude them from our decision making, because the more power we feed them, the more ability they have to treat us like children, where decisions are made behind closed doors and we are given a polished excuse for a reason as to why we are doing it. Thank you, and have a good night.